Okay, welcome back. And this Kenwood KR-9600 is going to be the latest thing we're going to take a look at. This beautiful old receiver from what they like to refer to as the golden age of audio equipment. Back when companies didn't focus as much on profits as they did on build quality and bragging rights, and this machine would certainly qualify for both of those categories. Belongs to a customer of mine who brought it in saying that there's some popping noise going on in the audio. Doesn't seem to be control related, so thinking that circuitry issues of some sort, but haven't hooked it up, don't know anything about it. So the first thing we'll do is, as always, come in, have a look at the front panel controls, how they laid everything out, get it around back, and have a look at the connections they provided for us. This unit does not have the type of cover that just slips over the top with two screws on each side. This one actually has the type of cabinet that the unit slides into, so the customer was nice enough to remove that for me so I didn't have to mess around with it. This is a very heavy receiver, as you might imagine, so we'll go ahead and get the unit checked out, find out what's going on with it, and see if we can duplicate the problem he's talking about. So give me a second to get set up for that, and we will get started. All right, picking back up, start at the left-hand side where we'll find power switch and of course the speaker selector switch. Not every receiver, but most of the larger ones from back in this day, giving you provisions for 3 sets of speakers. Give us the filter, high and low switches. An attenuator, minus 20 dB, knock the power down a little bit. Followed by a loudness control with 2 stages in it, so I'm interested in hearing what that sounds like. A defeat for the tone, of course the tone back in those days, not just bass and treble, but bass, treble, and mid-range. A volume and balance control, balance to the rear of the volume, and of course the volume control as well as the tone controls are detinted, give you that nice precision feel. Up above, of course, across the front, we're going to have the signal meters, tuning meter, and power level meters, followed by switching of the meters. You can either do 3-watt range or 200-watt range, deviation or signal. 25 US FM button is for de-emphasis, if I'm not mistaken, something to do with blah, 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 Dolby FM processor that you could run through your tape monitor. FM muting, of course. Selector is going to give us 2 phonos, standard for most of these receivers from back in the day. Of course, the AM, FM, and an auxiliary. You're going to get 2 tape monitors and a dubbing between the 2, and a mode switch, stereo, mono, and reverse of the 2 channels. And then an interesting feature, sound injection. Plug yourself a microphone in and away you go with some early day karaoke action if you like. Weighted flywheel tuning, of course. Tuning scale is very long on this one. And this is a heavy receiver. There's no way I'm going to try to flip it around with one hand on my bench, so give me a second and we'll get it flipped around and look at the connections in the back. All right, picking back up from the rear of the unit. All the connections kind of nice and countersunk into the center of it, which is kind of cool. I kind of dig that. You'll get your 2 tape monitors with not just RCA but DIN connectors in case you have those type of plugs you want to use. Then of course the 2 phonos and the auxiliary. And of course power in, preamp out, very common for the day. Definitely something we'll utilize in trying to isolate where the noise is coming from if we can find the noise. Multipath and detector out. Again, tuner functions related to outboard equipment. Speakers, 3 sets, 4 to 16 ohms, probably somewhere in the service manual. It may tell you if you're going to use all 3 sets to use higher ohmage speakers. And then of course you have your switched and unswitched outlets. And this model being ready to roll if you move to Europe with a switchable 220 volt, 240 volt transformer tap. Let's go over the top and have a look and see. First thing right off the get-go, huge transformer, 4 huge caps, and I don't know if we can tell what brand those are. If it'll let us sneak a peek and see. They're 80 volt at what, 10,000 mic maybe? Can't get a read on what the brand name of them is. That's all right. Fuse board, lots of fuses in this one, protecting everything, dual rectifiers, and of course it says on the front that it is dual power supply. I don't know if you could truly call it dual power supply without 2 transformers, but that's probably where they're getting it from. 2 separate taps off the transformer and 2 rectifiers. And 2, you know, a filter stage and a rectifier for each amplifier channel. I assume that's what they're trying to go for there. Coming down in the front, got a small regulator board. And switching meters, probably some adjustments there, maybe for the meters. The tuning board, of course the tuners back in these days. Everything very discreet, lots of filters, multi-stages, give you the best reception you could get from a FM receiver, huge tuning cap, and then tons of lights going all the way across the front, probably the fuse types for the dial, and then individual lamps for the selection of whatever you want to listen to. As for the amplifier, that's where it gets a little funny for me, is what I imagined I would be seeing is discrete outputs in this, but it does not have that. Instead, it has this, those Kenwood trio packs, which is basically, you know, just a condensed, the 2 output transistors and some supporting circuitry in one package, 10 pins, metal case, and this is the 200 watt version. So don't think we got any issue there, but that is what we're dealing with. There's not very much supporting circuitry that is used to support those. Just a few things there, a few transistors and a few resistors, not a whole bunch else. So I would imagine that those are quite long non-available, so if you've got a problem with one of those, it'd probably be unfortunate that you would not be able to find a part unless you could find a donor. But yeah, both sides exactly the same. Let's flip it up. I'm gonna pause and we'll flip this up and have a look at the bottom side of it and see what that looks like. All right, picking back up. Coming back with the unit kind of laying on its side here so we can kind of get a view of underneath. And of course you'll find all of your circuitry for preamp and so forth, protection circuitry, 2 relays. I'm not sure if one of the relays, if there's 1 relay per side or if one is for speaker switching and one is for protection. So I'm not sure what that's all about. But in theory, if they're 1 relay per side, per channel, then you could have 1 channel go up in smoke and still keep the party rolling with the other channel if it's like that. Capacitor wise, all these are old Elna caps, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. They are. And I would imagine that if you started going through those and checking them, all these higher value caps are probably still good. There could be a few that have dropped in value, but for the most part, they're all probably still good. Got all these old orange caps. I've changed a lot of those over the years. Failed, dropped in value. I'm not sure here. Maybe this is the phono stage. I'm not sure. But lots of mechanical switches, of course. Looks like everything would be pretty easy to get to if you want to clean the controls. So no issues there. All right, we will get some speakers hooked up to this and see if we can duplicate the problem he's talking about. All right, coming back in, got the unit hooked up, and going with the substitute speakers, do not want these spikes going through my bench speakers, destroying the tweeters in those that have had the tweeters destroyed in them way too many times because of similar situations. So I do hear it spiking out on the left-hand side, and it's coming just very randomly. Haven't heard anything on the right. Playing around with some of this stuff caused it to freak out just a minute ago, so. Also noticed there is some dirty controls happening, but don't think that's the reason for the noise. Beautiful to look at in the front, man, all lit up. This thing is gorgeous. Got a light out in the left power meter. And the stereo indicator is out also. It's playing in stereo, but we don't have no pilot. There it is. Ooh. It's popping out on the left-hand side there. Oh yeah. Ooh, baby, that is bad. That is bad, bad, bad. All right, let's pull the pins out and see if it's in preamp or main amp. I pulled the connecting pins between the preamp and the main amp, and I still hear it doing something, so. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, the next thing, we're gonna head right here to that Kenwood Trio pack. We'll plug in or hook up our voltmeter and just see the DC spiking on that, but I don't know if there's anything in that supporting circuitry of that unit that would be causing that. There could be a transistor there that's going a little flaky, but we'll see. We'll hook that up and see if that's where this is headed, but that's what it looks like. It looks like it's definitely spiking out on that one channel because I'm not hearing it over here. We pull the pins out from the preamp and the main amp, so that kind of eliminates the preamp as being any cause of an issue. So it looks to me like we're dead set in that channel, the left channel. So let's get a meter hooked up to that and see what kind of spikes we got there. Hang on a second. All right, coming back in. I've been monitoring it for a while here, and it's only spiked out a couple of times, but it went pretty high. And of course, it's only on the left side, not on the right side. So let's see if we can get it to do it, maybe. Well, we're abusing the speaker, but we're not really getting the result we want. We'll play around with some of the controls, and it's not a control issue. There is some static in some of these controls, but this is not what's happening. All right, we'll let it sit idle for a second and see what happens, but it was spiking out a couple of times. It was hitting 5, 6, 7, 8 volts, somewhere up in that neighborhood. It was just real instantaneous, and then it would settle back down. I mean, I'm obviously leaning towards that custom Kenwood Trio pack being the issue, but I don't know. There could still be something in that, a little bit of supporting circuitry. Like I said, when we decoupled the preamp and the main amp, we still had it, so that would eliminate everything from the preamp up to the main amp. And this is a case of, I wish when I had my shop I had a Syncor PA81 stereo amplifier analyzer, which had a built-in dummy load. And it was great for catching problems like this, because as soon as it, you could run it at high volume levels and not blast yourself out or damage any speakers. So that's the piece of equipment I should have kept most for my shop when I got rid of my shop. So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely flipping shit somewhere. Very random. So all right, I'm going to run this model number through a couple of internet forums and see if there's any notable issues with spiking for this. Definitely don't want to condemn the amplifier pack until I know for a fact that that's what it is. Maybe somebody else has experienced this. So give me a second, I'll look into that and we'll come back and see what I found out. All right, picking back up quite a while later and not finding any information on the internet that I felt was concrete as far as what might be causing the issue, whether it was either supporting transistors in the channel or the actual Trio pack amplifier module. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to flip them around. I removed this one. This one is from the known good channel. There's no issue on this side. And what I'm going to do is take the one from the suspected bad channel and move it to this location and see if our problem shifts to the right-hand side. If it shifts to the right-hand side, then we know we got an issue with the amplifier module. And if it don't, then from that point we can start pursuing some of these transistors. And there's a lot of talk on Audio Karma about possibly upgrading these transistors. They need to be upgraded to this or upgraded to that. They're hard numbers to cross-reference. Obviously, their numbers are no longer available, so you have to match them to something spec-wise that's around the same thing or better than what you had to begin with. But I'm not worried about doing any of that when I can easily just swap the two modules around to see if the problem is there. Because if the problem is the module, then there's going to be a big problem for the customer, since those are obviously quite scarce. I haven't looked on eBay, but I'm sure that there's probably not too many of these around. So, but yeah, we're not going to mess around with anything here until we know for a fact it's not the amplifier module. And there was absolutely no concrete, definitive, yes, change these transistors and this takes care of the popping noise. Lots of people complained about popping, and lots of people complained about popping on the left side only. I didn't see anybody saying that it was popping in the right-hand side. So That makes me wonder if the module is the issue, or maybe it's a transistor that's the issue. It's just really up in the air, 50-50. And so since I don't have a definitive answer, I'm going to use my own troubleshooting method, which is basically process of elimination. We're going to eliminate this as being the possible cause, and we can pursue something else because it's easy to do. All we got to do is just remove the two modules and flip them around. So I'm going to get that done, and then I will come back with my results and let you know. All right, picking back up after having both of the packs swapped around, left to the right and right to the left, everything back in order the way it's supposed to be. I'll show you what I already know. We're going to plug it back in. Wait for our relay to click.
Medicated ointment to relieve the pain and itching of almost any skin irritation.
Nothing changed, still in the left-hand side. So what this tells me is good news for the customer because that piece is not bad. So we do have an issue in the supporting circuitry of that channel. So we'll start to kind of meticulously go through that. Kind of run out of time for today. So we'll pick back up on this next week, and we'll go through the circuitry of that left channel and find out if we have a transistor that's bad and which one do we have that's bad. We know that this thing is reacting when it's a cold start. Once it's heated up, everything's good to go. So probably wouldn't be a bad idea for me to pick up a can of freeze mist, and we'll see if we can isolate it to one component and find out which one it is that causes the trouble. But for the most part, we know what's going on. We know that the worst possible news is not the case at all. No issue with the amplifier module. Definitely a problem in the supporting circuitry. So we'll pick back up next week for part 2 of this, and we'll get it finished up, find out what's wrong with it, and get it fixed.